Good
Good
morning. It is
morning.
Literary Souls, and I have my coffee.
Nice. I have my water.
I have that too. I came prepared this morning. Well, welcome in everyone on this beautiful Saturday morning. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Late Art. Morning, Roman. Morning, Maxter. How's everyone doing today? How's all of you wonderful chatters chitty chatting away? How are you doing today, Ark?
I'm well. How are you?
I am I am sleepy, but I have my coffee.
Hey, then that's a good thing. That's a
See,
great thing.
people need to understand that I fully admit, yes, it's an addiction, but it's not a problem because I don't care. People are like, you have to admit that you have a problem before you can fix it. Well, I understand that it's a thing,
Here's
but I
what.
don't want to fix
Guess
it.
what? Here's the thing. I have a problem, and I'm not gonna fix it. Ha ha.
Right? That's just kind of how I feel about coffee. I'm like, coffee has been with me and been there for me more times than most human beings. So, so
Oh gosh.
coffee has gotten through me through some very difficult times, and I'm not getting rid of it. It's my
Mm-hmm.
safety blanket, and I shall not be ashamed. Ah, so we're getting through the first book of the Book of Lost Tales. Woot!
Finally,
we
I
didn't
didn't think
nearly
we were
take
gonna
as
do it.
we didn't take nearly as long as we could have. Ah, good morning, Late Art. Good morning, Roman. Yeah, I it is definitely a much more academic book, but also at the same time, the tone of the entire book is very different than the Silmarillion. What is up, Boba? How are you doing today? Good person. Good person. Um,
Yeah, these last three chapters take on a different tone than what the Silmarillion provides, and
it's interesting.
it's interesting because I don't know exactly what Tolkien was going for when he when Christopher made the Silmarillion, he was using pieces that Tolkien had written or wrote, um, that Tolkien wrote that meshed together. And then I think that's exactly what he did here. All of these mesh together, but
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like only this chapter meshes with only this chapter, he's going to
Mm-hmm.
throw them into this series of short stories.
Right.
And it's it's really nice to get this take on the sun and the moon, and I really enjoyed it actually.
Yeah, like I in the Silmarillion, it kind of very much focuses on how Feanor is a dum dum, um, and like I feel like in these chapters, like yes, Feanor is mentioned, yes, the Noldor or the Noldalai are mentioned, but they're not the focus. It's the point of view of the Valar. Like what do the Valar do? Like what they're picking up the pieces of the trees while the elves go and kill themselves, like they're just kind of like, what the heck is going on, man? And it kind of gives you more of a sympathetic outlook towards the Valar. They're just like, we're just trying to do what we're supposed to do, man. Like, what are y'all doing?
And this is how slow it takes to like share the stories of the olden times. Um,
Morning,
Errol
Salty.
says, "Whence be the sun and moon, O Lindo? For as yet I heard only of the two trees and their sad fading, but of the coming of men or of the deeds of the elves beyond Valinor has no one told me." That is where they're at in the Silmarillion, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
he's been staying at this home for probably a couple weeks now.
Mm-hmm. What is
So,
up, Emperor Doomsday and Mila Mila? Hello, hello.
good morning,
Um,
everyone.
but yeah, so like for those of you maybe like just now catching us, we've been in the Book of Lost Tales, and it's kind of the Silmarillion, but through the point of view of someone from our world transported to Middle Earth and is being told these stories from uh someone else, like from someone who's very old and wise's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it is going to sound a little different than the Silmarillion because, you know, it's one of Tolkien's, like I think it's one of Tolkien's earlier stories before the Silmarillion was really kind of cemented in. And some of the ideas that Tolkien had here, I'm just like reading and I was like, wait, we're on a boat now? When did we get on a boat? Why is
Mm-hmm.
there a boat?
Mm-hmm. There were many twists and turns to get to where we got with the Silmarillion,
Mm-hmm.
and if you read the histories, you definitely get that feeling of, oh, did he mean to write this story instead of what we got, but then he changed it. I wonder why he changed it, because this is so much happier than the
Mm-hmm.
Silmarillion. Or I'm glad he didn't write this, because this is so much like this is so much more different than what we got in the Silmarillion. I enjoy the
Right.
Silmarillion more. And so like you get to have a more in-depth appreciation for all of Tolkien's books, especially when you
Right.
compare them. The
Yeah.
the only one that I find the hardest to compare is, I find it very, very easy to compare the Silmarillion with the histories,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa, but I find it very, very difficult to compare even the Silmarillion to the Lord of the Rings. Maybe that's because
Mm-hmm.
the Lord of the Rings is set so far into the future of the timeline,
Right.
but it's also because, like, when you read the Lord of the Rings, it is written so differently, because it doesn't have like this old English
Mm-hmm.
like vibe to it.
Boba makes a good point. Book of Lost Tales is like director's cut version. Yes, I agree. I agree. So my
But only
kind
if it's
of
snippets. Only if it's
right.
snippets.
But here's kind of where my kind of like this is Mando's theory about Tolkien's thoughts point to zero as she's drinking her morning coffee, because sometimes I have these weird like epiphanies. Like I think the Lord of the Rings, and maybe even because the Silmarillion, I think Tolkien he did intend to publish, and the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit were works that he intended to publish, but the Book of Lost Tales, and maybe even the
The rest of the
unfinished
histories?
the unfinished tales, I think that was for him personally. I think that was just him being like, this is my story, just for me and the way that I want it,
I
no
I
one
know
else
many
has to
authors
care.
I know many authors that just write about their universe, and just write and write and write and write and write, and it's not meant to be published. It is meant to, like, I have a very, very good thought about my universe. I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
expound on it, and then I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put this in a vault, and then if I ever have that thought where I can connect it to the main story, the one that I want to share with everyone else, I will bring it out of the vault, and then we'll go from there. Like, connect it somehow, or change it, or
Mm-hmm.
rip it apart and take pieces. And I think that's what the Book of Lost Tales is, for Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that theory. I do like that
Mm-hmm.
theory.
Yeah, because like I feel like, well, so kind of the tone that we get here is much happier than what we get in the Silmarillion, and I think that's Tolkien, like trying to cheer himself up in a
What I
way
noticed
because.
with the cheeriness was, it's very similar to The Hobbit when they're going to
Mm-hmm.
Imladris, and all of the elves are very happy, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's like in the last days of the elves, and the elves know this. They're still very, very happy. They're still very, very cheerful, and that's what I got from these last chapters of the
Mm-hmm.
first book of the Lost Tales.
Agreed. Yeah, I find it like, granted we can't like go in a time machine and go ask like Tolkien, what were your thoughts on the Book of Lost Tales versus the Silmarillion? Was this just for you? Was this meant to be published? What's going on? And we can only speculate, but I think it's fun to speculate because I mean, it's written down. He obviously had a cohesive thought, and it's fun to see like maybe like when the the Silmarillion was being published, think changes were made for the publishing, like maybe for the publishing company, like he did for Lord of the Rings, or changes were made to make it a little bit more of a adult tone, darker tones, versus this one is like just kind of for him personally, just to cheer him up, because like it's just weird, the kind of back and forth with the tone of, it's the same story, but it's just very interesting, I guess, and different how it's being told to us.
And if he had gone, like, what if the Silmarillion had become the Lost Tales and this had become the Silmarillion? Like, the tone, as you say, the tone of the book would have been completely different, and
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely don't think we would have enjoyed it as much. I think
Right.
that we
It
enjoy the
feels
more,
conjoined.
yeah, we appreciate we appreciate the more sad and somber tones of the Silmarillion, because there are happy parts in the Silmarillion. There are great, like, victories that you feel great about in the Silmarillion. Not so much here. I think that there would have been battles in this, but he just was, I like this battle. I'm going to take it, and we're going to set this aside for the Silmarillion pile.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is one thing that I like to do on my spare time and when I have nothing else to do and I'm just bored, is I like to think about, like, what would this author have done at this time? Because I'll
Mm-hmm.
be reading a book, whether it's The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini, or if I'm reading a Terry Pratchett novel, or if I'm reading Brandon Sanderson or Tolkien, like specifically for the fantasy side of things, and I'll think, well, what if Brandon had gone this way at this time in this book? Or
Mm-hmm.
what if Terry had gone this way in this novel and decided to bring this character back in a later novel? Like, what would have happened to the storyline then?
And that's what we're supposed to do as fans. Like I feel like that's the whole point of fandom, is for us to speculate, what if, how could that have been different, but like we're doing it because we love the source material so much. It's not like we're not trying to change it just for malice or ill intention. We're just like, oh, what could have been, we get excited about like how it could have been, and like it's how we interact with the material. So yeah, I think that's
Mhm.
what we're supposed to do. Good morning, Thad. How
But
are
we're
you
not
doing
gonna go
today?
make entire films and say that these films that we're making are, like, that's canon. Like, we're not changing anything. We're just saying, hey, I wonder what would have happened if this had been here. I'm not going to go ahead and say that the Book of Lost Tales is the Silmarillion or should take its place, and then I'm going to make a film
Mhm.
about it.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it's just interesting. So many possibilities. Anyway, okay, so let me give kind of brief synopsis overview, and then we can kind of go a little bit more into detail about uh because we did 3 chapters this week. We knew that we were getting towards the end of part 1 of the Book of Lost Tales. We will start part 2, I believe, next week.
Hmm.
And yeah, so the 3 chapters is the Tale of the Sun and Moon, the Hiding of Valinor, and Gilfanon's Tales. The tra the I, the Traviel of the Noldalai, and the I can't, and the Coming of Mankind. It cut off coming, and I was just like, no, that's not the title of this chapter.
It
So
did
yeah,
that.
those
It did that on my ebook too, and I was thinking the same thing. I was like, no, and the coming of what? The coming and
those
going?
It's like, wait a minute, this is not right. I won't be able to interact much today. It blew my pain threshold. Need to expand extra time. Oh, I'm sorry. I hope that you get to feeling better. I understand the pain threshold. I think I did something to my back the other day, and it's just been kind of, it hurts period. Like it hurts at random times. Like if I lean too far one way, I'm just like, ah, pain. So I understand. But anyway, so Tale of Sun and Moon, The Hiding of Valinor, and Gilfanon's Tale. Does that sound right? Am I pronouncing that right?
If you're not, I
Gilfanon.
I really don't care. Though these type of names, these types of names, I just do not care about. And looking at Gilfanon, it looks like Gilfanon.
Okay. That's what we'll go with. And so in red kind of just synopsis, the trees were just yeeted out of existence by Ongolianth, but she's named something else in this
She's named
story.
like 5 different things by 5 different peoples.
She's just it's the big spider thing. Like this is just big
She
spider.
was really gonna eat Melkor this time.
Yeah. But it wasn't like it was not intentional, but it was intentional. And that's where the kind of like one of the interesting differences between this story and the Silmarillion is like she just started eating and she just couldn't stop on
Yep.
this on the Book of Lost Tales versus in the Silmarillion she ate, but she was like, I'm still hungry, I'm going to eat you, and it's not just that blah, just eating,
I
eat,
think
eat,
that
eat.
I think
Eat,
that's the
eat.
two sides of gluttony that Tolkien was getting after, was like eating, but then you're still like hungry and and then you want to go find something else. Or as with this tale, you're just eating and eating and eating and eating and you don't see anything else around you. And I
Right.
I really like that. That's something that I forgot to point out last week.
Mm-hmm.
But I have always enjoyed Angolian as a character, because where'd she come from? And then where did she go?
I know, right, Cotton Eye
It's
Joe?
oh my god. I set that up for you.
You did. I was just like, are you
Congratulations.
going to do that? I'm like, oh, he's setting this up.
But where did she come from? Where'd she go, Cotton Eye Joe? And why is it just Sheila? Why is it just Sheila that is the big bad spider of the what is it? Second and third age? Because Ungoliant is just in the first, correct? Or not even really the first, right? Like just the beginning of the first, if anything.
So, yeah, that's all that we hear about her is
I have
she's a
totally
big
gone off
spider.
topic, and I do not care.
Well, the thing is, we get mention of her because of the spider in the third age that tries to eat the hobbits. I forget her name. It's like she is the child of so and so, and that's all the reference that we get in the Lord of the Rings. But then in somewhere, yeah, I think she just shows up, eats the trees, tries to eat the others, and then kind of goes into hiding, and nobody knows what happened. Mando, I replicated me some Earl Grey hot this morning. Oh, Earl Grey is good. I periodically will substitute one of my 2 cups of coffee in the morning for an Earl Grey. Because I have a problem and I don't care.
I do enjoy the point of views, or like you get the feelings and emotions from the Ainur
Mm-hmm. It's
and
just like
the
I
Maiar that are
like
there.
the how angry Tolkas and
Aule
Aole
was
were.
very upset.
Holy cow. Like you kind of like in the summary it's just like, oh yeah, they're upset and they're angry. But no, like they are angry in the I really like how they went deeper into how the Valar actually felt about the Noldor, like how the Noldor left, why they left, and then as they were getting news of the kinslaying, like the Valar were just heartbroken and just beside themselves. Like we don't know what to do at this moment because the light of the entire world has just been eaten, and now the children of Iluvatar, who we've been waiting for millennia for, are now killing each other. Like what?
And we also see a perfect representation of what was happening in Valinor as the Noldor were fleeing from Valinor after the kinslaying, and then going to start gigantic decades years long wars against Melkor. And
Mhm.
we see that because Manwë is standing next to the two trees. He's very, very sad. It says his heart was very heavy as he pondered deep and gloomily. And Sorantor, king of eagles, is come again on strong winds through the dusk. And behold, alighting on the boughs of darkened Silpian, he tells how Melko is now broken into the world. See, they're still calling him Melko. They're
Mhm.
still calling him his original name. Uh, it is now broken into the world, and many evil spirits are gathered to him. But methinks nevermore will Autumna open unto him, and already is he busy making himself new dwellings in that region of the north, where stand the iron mountains very high and terrible. So while everything that we were reading about in the Silmarillion is taking place, this is also happening at the same time, and it's really
Mhm.
nice to get that completion of the timeline. So as Aule is upset, as Tulkas is upset, as Yavanna and Varda and all of the other uh, Ainur are just very, very upset about the destruction of the trees. You now have the elves going on, well, the Noldor going on a rampage, or as they like to call it here, the gnomes going on a rampage, and you have Melkor coming out and saying, "Come at me, bro." So that's why this chapter and the Coming of Men are probably my two favorite chapters in the
Mhm.
entirety of this book, because
Mhm.
it gives us that extra detail if you've read the Silmarillion.
Right, and it kind of gives more insight into what the Valar were thinking. Because in the Silmarillion, they kind of give you a little bit of insight, like, oh, Manwë knew all the things. Oh, he was sad that the
Yeah,
Noldor left, and kind of
it's
like that.
very epic. It's like an
Mm-hmm.
epic. It's like a Norse epic. The gods just show up in the nick of time. They've been preparing for decades because they had forethought, and then they just come in and clean house. And they take out Melkor. They take out some Balrogs. They beat the crap out of Sauron, and then they just go back to where they came from, which is very similar to what most Norse, Greek, Roman, many the Celtic gods, like they would all come in at the last second, and that was the main like climax of the story. Was,
Mm-hmm.
oh, look who's here to save
Mm-hmm.
the day. But this one kind of humanizes the Ainur.
Mm-hmm. And part of me thinks that's why that was left out of the Silmarillion is I think he was trying to get the Valar as these higher beings, and if you take a little bit of that humanity out, it makes them higher beings in our, like, as far as like us as the reader's mindset, because there's these mystical, fantastical beings that we can't fathom,
Mm-hmm.
versus in the Book of Lost Tales, like, oh, that makes sense, like they're just like us. And so I think maybe on some level Tolkien was like, let's let they're not supposed to be human, they're supposed to be these angelic beings, so
Well,
let's
that's like in many of the drafts, he changed the name from like Aule and Yavanna changed the name from Aule's spouse to like
mm-hmm,
Aule's wife. Like he changed they're synonymous with one another. They mean the same thing, but
mm-hmm,
he changed the phrasing of it, the verbiage, and that also made, instead of them just being like normal relationships, it elevated them to like that's what a demigod and another demigod would have as a relationship.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can see why Tolkien made those certain changes to the Valar in that way. It's still, I feel like I would have been able to get more um into the story though if we gotten the Valar's perspective, because I feel like part of people's apprehension or difficulty getting through the Silmarillion is because it just seems like you are just reading a history textbook sometimes. Whereas in the Book of Lost Tales, like, oh, this is like an epic story.
Now,
Like, I'm in the story.
I absolutely agree, and this is where my theory comes in. we know that throughout the 60s, Tolkien was editing The Lord of the Rings and was making for sure that that was going to be near perfect for the coming generations as the books were reprinted. And we do know that in 1969 he sold he sold the rights to everything but the book trademarks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we know that he was still thinking about his universe, and he was securing some additional funds for his family, for his estate, for the future, so that he could continue this. And that was in 1969. So he has always been within this universe that he has created, and he has always been thinking about it all throughout the years. My personal theory is he wanted to then take all of the words and make them feel very similar to the Lord of the Rings. He just never
Mm-hmm.
got to that. He 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 was, how do I put this? Um Too consumed with the Lord of the Rings and editing that and making sure that the publishers didn't destroy his work,
Mm-hmm.
that he couldn't focus on the Silmarillion. And I think that the Silmarillion was going to be just as long and just as rich and had a depth to it, just like the Lord of the Rings. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
think. I don't think that the Silmarillion we have today compared to the Lord of the Rings is quite small.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be about three quarters, like three quarters the size of the Lord of the Rings, or more than the Lord of the Rings,
Hmm.
if he had his way. And I don't think that we would have the Book of Lost Tales. I don't think we would have all of these histories. I think the Silmarillion was going to be the last one. I think that was going to be his true magnum opus, but he never got to that because he died in 73.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my working theory. And the more I reread these histories and read some of the books that I haven't read about the histories, yeah, the more that theory is cemented in my head.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a message from somebody about some horrible, horrible thing.
Is it called the Rings of Power?
No, complete sidetrack for all of you wonderful people. Per usual. National Treasure 3 script is in the works.
Oh no! Oh
Says Jerry
no!
says Jerry Bruckenheimer.
Oh no! We can
So
talk about that at the end if you want, because that is important to some of us in chat. I know
yeah, I guess.
that is horrible.
Oh no.
They take everything that is good in this world and
And
they
they twist
destroy
it.
it.
What is what is Tolkien's definition of evil? Evil cannot create; it can only distort. Anyway, before I have another aneurysm, yeah, somebody sent me that, and I'm just like, not now, not now. I'm having my morning cup of coffee, discussing good things, good things. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Book of Lost Tales though was like written before the Silmarillion, so I don't know how that would go with your theory. Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the Silmarillion was his magnum opus. He would have taken this, all of this.
Oh, that so you're talking about the actual intended purpose of the summer. I got you.
Yes, not the
I'm on the same train.
Silmarillion that we got. No, no, no.
Right, right,
It would
right,
have been
right.
different than what we got.
Yes. Um, that would have been like I feel like I don't know if we had gotten more.
I would have enjoyed it. I know
But
that
now
some
I'm
people
kind
would
of
have been turned off by it because they're like, we're talking about more history? No thanks. Uh,
right. I guess my thought process is putting it everything into the context of modern like modernity. What would have like say Amazon purchased like no they nothing would have changed even if there had been a completed work.
Yeah, and see, that's the beauty about The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. It is a 100% completed work. There's
Mhm.
nothing that Amazon can do to say that they've made this canon. No, you haven't made it canon because the author completed his work, he completed his editing process, and it is published. It's
Well,
been published for what, close to 60 years now?
if not longer. I guess my thought process is Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is a completed story, to my understanding. I still have not read all of the books. Yes,
Yes,
I
it's
know. Take away
completed.
my nerd card. Um, and they like trash. Like it was a. They
Oh,
basically took
and
the
that's
stuff and lit it on fire, and that. So like I
yes,
just.
yes, completely agree. Completely agree. That is what they're going to try to do.
Mhm,
That is exactly like the Wheel of Time. Is an exact blueprint of what is going to happen to
mhm,
the Rings of Power. It is going to be absolute trash. They're going to put it out. The Wheel of Time, I believe, already has the second season or third season in production right now, so they are continuing that trash heap even after the horrible reviews. And then they're going to do the exact same thing for 5 seasons because I guarantee you that we're going to get at least 3 seasons of this trash heap. It's going to be utter garbage. It's going to
Please,
be
Arkasule,
disgusting,
don't tell me
and
that.
they're going to make it. And they're going to put it out, and they're going to say, "This is what we made." And there's a bunch of nerds on the internet that don't like it because they say it's not following the
Uh,
lore. Well, guess what? It's going to happen, but I always have my physical copy of The Lord of the Rings that was released back in the 80s, and no
yep,
one can take that away from me. Nobody.
correct. Later, made a good point about the National Treasure. Is that the one with the girl as the main character? Didn't they show a teaser on Friday Night Tight or somewhere? Probably I haven't been able to catch Friday Night Tights live in a while. Even though I am actually drinking Geek Grand Coffee, the blend of the Fellowship All Hail Friday Night Tights blend. Mando 20 in the checkout if you want, you know, support me and support Friday Night Tights.
That's really good. I would greatly enjoy that. And it has to be the predator from Prey. It can't be like any fancy high-tech predator. It has to be the weird predator from Prey that lost to a girl.
Oh man, they don't know how to make they don't know how to make their protagonists good enough to actually defeat a strong villain. And that's so sad because or they're so afraid of having a villain that's so overpowered that your heroes or heroine or your protagonist like beats them, but by the skin of their chinny chin chin. Like they're afraid of taking those types of risks, and it makes everything boring and bland. I think that's one of the bigger things is like they think they are not taking risks with these shows or these movies that they're just dishing out to us like on a platter of poop. They're like, oh, these are the safe choices. These protagonists are all alike. They're all gonna be better than the villain, but the villain is gonna be relatable because we can't have actual bad people.
Nope.
But the good guys they win, but because they're so strong that nobody else could possibly even beat them. And it's just
It's
like
it's
give
the
us
same. It's the same story writing, copy and pasted 1,000 times every single year. And that is exactly why I don't go to the movies anymore. And I haven't been to the movies
Mhm.
since episode 8. And I walked out of that movie theater feeling nothing. And I was like, I don't need to go back to the movies anymore. It's all trash. It's all going to be trash. I had made up my mind long before I knew anything about Geeks and Gabers or Nerdrotic,
Mhm.
and it was exactly at episode 8. And that's why whenever I hear someone say, like Jeremy says, like the channel really like kicked off like right around episode 8 when that came out, because like that is what we're standing up against is more episode 8s. And I was just thinking, yeah, I did that, but with my own pocketbook, because I'm
Uh,
not I'm not going to support anything that comes out nowadays. The only thing that I'm going to support is if I know the creator, or if I know like the if I know that the creator means what they say, like Eric July. I know that he means what he says and that
Mm-hmm.
he is going to produce a good comic. There's no way that ISOM #1, which is coming out in like, I don't know, what is the campaign at now? Like 20 days left in the
I don't
campaign.
know.
But I know that that is going to be um, an amazing comic book. And I'm not even a comic book guy, but I trust Eric and I trust
Mm-hmm.
his team because he has always talked about building a good team. He has always talked about being transparent, and that is one thing that we have seen is the movie companies and producers and executives. They're not transparent. They want to keep everything close to the chest. They use this term like, oh, we want to surprise you. No, 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 you're not being transparent because you're not making a good product. Guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Without giving any spoilers, Eric July is being as transparent as possible. And all that does is fuel the hype.
Mm-hmm. Rome of the Empire says, no, proper predator.
No, I disagree.
Ah.
Don't you ruin Proper Predator like that.
I love it. I don't drink coffee and they don't ship to Europe. They don't ship to Europe? I thought they did. I thought Az got some. Dang it. Miss Martin Muse just came on. I'll be back in a little bit. All right. Tell Miss Martin Muse I said hi. I think my last movie in cinema was episode 9.
Yeah, it's episode 9.
But I could be wrong.
I feel
What
bad
is
for
up,
you.
Ryan? Can't wait for ISOM. So my last movie that I saw in theaters, I'm trying to remember, Rogue One came out before episode 7, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my last movie that I watched in the cinema before Top Gun or before Spider-Man No Way Home was episode 7. I walked out of episode 7 and
No, episode 7 and then Rogue One. Rogue
okay.
One 2016, episode 7 2015.
Okay then. I remember walking out of episode 7 feeling like that looked pretty, but that wasn't Star Wars. Granted, at that time they had already pissed me off as a fan because I was an EU fan all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day I heard the announcement that Disney decannoned the EU. I was in a Barnes and Noble. I was in my local Barnes and Noble. I had a coffee in hand and a book that I was about to purchase. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, did you hear the news?" I was like, "What?" The EU isn't canon anymore. And I was like, well, there goes one customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I gave episode 7 a chance because one of my friends paid for my ticket, and I was like, this is stupid. I liked the cinematography. I liked how it looked, but I walked out of the theater going, yeah, I knew this was gonna happen. And then Rogue One came, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna do really good with these side stories. Maybe they're gonna be good. And then I was just like, oh,
Like,
how can
you mess up the precursor to episode 4 where they get the Death Star plans? How can you mess that up? It is
I liked Rogue One for a lot of reasons, but I also didn't like Rogue One.
Same here.
It was one of those things where I really liked the storyline, but I was like, this isn't this isn't a Star Wars story. This is just a story of people that kind of they're trying to do a Star Warsy theme.
It felt like a CW sci-fi movie slapped into the Star Wars universe.
I liked it on its own. I think Rogue One was really good, just on its own. But as a Star Wars story, I'm just like,
see, and that's exactly it. The space battle looked kind of dope, but yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Rogue Run. I'm sorry, my pronunciation of words is not good.
We have to go from speaking Elvish to speaking English. Leave us alone.
How did we get here?
Oh, we were talking about the third installment of what was that movie you were
Oh,
just
National
talking about?
Treasure. Okay,
National
okay. I was
Treasure.
just like, how do we get for Star Wars? Because like we do this all the time. We'll jump from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars all the time, but I have to
It's
try and
the two,
remember how
it
did we
is
get here.
literally the two main franchises, the flagships of of sci-fi Star Wars, and the flagship of fantasy is the Lord of the Rings. So
Right.
you gotta be able to leap the shark somehow.
Leap the shark. Oh, we did that literally yesterday. Anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, that so going to I remember the point I was actually making was yeah, I was already way out of the Star Wars fandom and thinking that modernity was basically a turd on fire the moment that I saw like episode 7, and I was just like, I'll give Rogue One a shot. But that was Rogue One then was the last movie I saw in theaters before Spider-Man No Way Home, because I have been a diehard Spider-Man person since I could talk. And yeah. I was gonna go see Spider-Man even if it was horrible. I wouldn't have. Well, I take that back. I didn't see the other two Spider-Man or Spider-Boy because I don't consider them whatever. I the only reason I went to see No Way Home was because Tobey Maguire, and Tobey is my Spider-Man. He will always be my Spider-Man, and I will fight you. I will die on this hill. And so I knew that he was going to be in the movie, and that's the only reason I saw Spider-Man No Way Home, because like I knew from the moment they decanonized the EU and they took over Marvel, I was like, nope, this ain't
They
this
can do
is my
whatever they
universe.
want.
This is no longer my universe as a fan. This is their universe, and I'm just gonna go do my own thing and hang out. And that's eventually, after a while, that's how I found all of you amazing people. Since you can speak the English, just recently watched No Way Home, enjoyed it so much. Yes, that I enjoyed that movie, and if that is the last movie besides Top Gun Maverick that I see in the theaters for the next 10 years, I'll be fine. But anyway, back to the actual material.
Yeah, this is just talking about, like, we're still in the first chapter. Well, the first chapter of this episode, which is the making of the sun and the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's still where we left off was Aule and Tolkas were going to chop off the fruit from the
Mm-hmm.
tree and make the sun, or actually, I think it was the moon, one or the other. And but they're making the sun and the moon, and that is literally all they do in this chapter. And it is a lot of exposition and a lot of information about the making of the sun and the moon. It's really nice. I enjoyed it. This is, like I said, this has got to be one of my favorite chapters of this book, and it's because of the importance of the sun and the moon later on in the story, whether that be the Silmarillion or even the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And it gives that needed background of how, I mean, even Tolkas and Aule, like Aule slipped, like he was chastising some people for, like, oh my word, what are they doing? They're gonna touch the tree. What's going on? And then he's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, just be quiet. You don't even know what I'm doing. And when he was doing that, he slipped, and then the fruit hit the ground because Tolkas, even as strong as Tolkas was, the fruit was still heavier than what he could pick up, and it fell and it burst, and there was a blinding light that went straight up into the sky. And I was like, when I read that, and when I read that, it was it was like, oh well, like that's what was inside those trees. That's what Ungoliant was eating. Like, that's pretty powerful.
And she got most of that, but not like that was just a tiny drop. Like imagine if like the tree had burst open while she was trying to eat it. Like I don't I think the all of Middle Earth would have just burned.
That, or everyone would have been blind.
Forever blind. Everyone walking around blind. That would have been cray cray. Imagine the new generation. They watch this first episode of Rings of Prime and they see Trees of Valinor and say, "Look, This is like an Elden Ring. No.
I love it. I love you, Bobin. I love you so much for that. Like, thank you. I'm
there
going
there
to
are
steal it. I'm going
there
to
are
steal that.
children that I almost chose violence because they're like, oh, because I was I, I was just out and about.
Another tangent. Here we
I was just
go.
out and about, and I heard somebody talking about like, I think it was Star Wars, and like, oh yeah, the Fortnite I'm like, you might.
The Fortnite person. Let's go.
I'm just like, I need to wring your little neck.
You do not deserve to grow into an adult.
Like, I almost chose violence, and I was just like, no, I'm on the clock. I have to walk back to work because I was running an errand for my boss, and I was like walking around Walmart because we needed to get something, and I overheard these kids in the toy section going like, yeah, holding like I so happened to see them holding like a Jedi, or I don't know who it was. I think it was Vader. And they're like, yeah, it's the guy from Fortnite. And I'm just like,
just keep walking.
I can't kill children. This is against the law. Just like I hate this new generation. I hate it so much. I hate it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Also, Manway has a son named Fianway.
I thought that was a little weird.
I mean, yeah, like everyone has kids now in this book. When you hardly hear about anything in the Silmarillion, I'm just like, oh, they had kids. Okay. Well, how does that work?
Right, that's kind of what I thought. I was just like, wait, the Valar can reproduce? I think that's why Tolkien probably left
adopted? That. I don't know.
I feel like Tolkien intentionally left that part out about the Valar, because that, like, I have questions. Like, how do you reproduce? Like, you're both immortal gods. Why would you need to reproduce?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, late art. Fortnite is cancer.
Yes, is. Fortnite is literal cancer.
And basically, the hiding of Valinor. Basically, the Valar are like, yeah, the elves and Melkor are dumb. We need to. We're getting the heck out of here. So they build a thing. This is where I kind of got confused about the ship, because I thought the ship was supposed to technically be for the sun and the moon, and then like I'm like, wait, why are we sailing
like an
away?
Actual ship?
Like, yeah, I was just like, why are we sailing away? What? What is the ship? When did the ship? What? Why? What? I have questions. But yeah, that the hiding of Valinor was kind of a confusing chapter for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just kind of like reading it. I'm like,
that's why I just skimmed over it, because there are so many things that I was thinking, okay, this makes no sense. This, because of course, we both have read the Silmarillion, so we already have a basis for what we think the lore is. And then when this comes in and throws monkey wrenches after monkey wrenches,
it's just like all of the monkey wrenches just getting thrown around.
Just here's a crescent, here's a screwdriver, here's a monkey wrench. Like, what do you want? You want a flathead screwdriver? You want a Phillips screwdriver? Well, I'll take both. And it is so strange.
Yeah. So the hiding of Valinor, if any of you are keeping up with us and have questions and want us to answer those questions, I have the same questions.
Yes.
And then we move on to Gilfanon's tale. Basically, what happened was the host that was telling Ariel or Elfwine, whatever,
and I got one last thing to say about that previous chapter. Okay. The hiding of is it the hiding of what? What's the name of the chapter? I don't even know.
The hiding of Valinor.
Yes, the hiding of Valinor. It is so short that you read it and you think, did I just have a fever dream?
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense to me. None. It's like Manway's there, but then he's like not, and then he is, and then you have some other people that are also there,
And
and
people are
then
arguing, and then like all of a sudden there's this boat,
people
and
are
it's like,
upset, people are happy, but then they get really sad, and then there's a boat, and they get on the boat, and then they go away.
but then Valinor. I thought Valinor was the place to. I feel like they kind of move the island onto the boat, but then where does the boat go? Like, I just have questions. Uh, or if you have any questions, let us search for the answers together. Yes, that is the feeling of I don't. When was the boat made? How was it? Who? What? Why?
And that,
When?
like, I guess we could dedicate an entire. I don't want to do this. This is a hypothetical. We could dedicate an entire podcast just to like understanding this one chapter. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do that because that
But
is
the chapter
torture.
is so freaking short. It's just like there's so like I don't know how, but yes, this is gonna be a racist joke. I'm sorry, but it's still funny. Like having a tiny car full of people, and they just kind of come out, and you're just like, how are they all? How is that all in
You can't be racist against clowns. So
there? It's like a little clown car with 50 clowns come like spilling out of it, and you're just like, how did
because like in the clown car, they got the little person, but then they have like the 8 foot tall person come out, and it's just like, how? Wait, what? How did you fit? How did you both fit in there? And
and
there's
this is
about
not like the
15
TARDIS
different people in
because
there. Yeah.
because the TARDIS, yes, the TARDIS is bigger on the inside, this is not on the outside, but the door still is only one size. You can only a certain amount of sized person can get into the TARDIS. So clown cars break reality and all of the laws of physics.
I've actually seen a clown car, but it was a bunch of little people that were inside of it, and they had about 15 little people in there, and it was still fascinating to see them all like bail out, and they weren't sitting on top of each other or like laying on top. They were all sitting in the car. I have no idea how, because like the car had like tinted windows so you couldn't see in, and they just did it
uh,
as like a quick gag. But they
mhm.
drove up, they honked the horn, and it was like one of those stupid horns. And then they all got out, and I was legitimately amused.
Was it like, let's see, can I do this? No, it's not it. Was it this one?
Yes. Yep. It was that one.
Points for Doctor Who reference. Thank you, Ladarts. Thank you. Peter Capaldi is the last Doctor. Changed my mind. Not really. I'm not going to change my mind. Anyway. So yeah. So the chapter, the hiding of Valinor, is small, but there's a lot of confusing things packed in there, and my brain could not fathom what exactly was happening. So we're going to move on to Galfanon's tale, the travel of Noldali and the coming of men. Basically, this doesn't really change much.
The only change that I really saw was Melkor's like fortress was not
Mm,
Autumno or Angband or whatever other fancy word. It's called Angamandi.
yeah.
Angamandi. Angamandi. I'm like, where did you get that name, Tolkien? Where?
Later, no argument from me there. Of course, thank you. Tall people driving mini coupes. Yes, that's the imagery that previous chapter has. But yeah, and more or less as far as the, I guess, quote unquote overarching story of like Ariel, like he's the one listening and getting these stories. We move to him, I guess, moving into Gilfanon's residence.
Yeah,
I
he
kind of
he
was
left. Did
confused.
he leave? Yeah, he from what I read, he left the last like
Oh my.
the cabin,
Mm-hmm.
and then he went with Gilfanon, and it
Yeah.
says that the text ends with Ilios preparing to tell a tale. So there is a new person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, it says it was now 6 months since Ariel went to visit Meryl E. Turinki, beseeching
Mhm.
a draught of limpe, or like some refreshment.
Mhm.
And so he stayed at that place for 6 months.
Yeah, so he was getting all of this information for a very long time, and then that's kind of where we get these disconjointed stories of the travels of the Noldor and the coming of man, because Christopher actually puts quite a bit of side notes. He's just like, yeah, I'm not really sure, because there's like several versions of the same story all packed into this, so I'm not sure what my dad was doing here. Here we go. And he's just like, here you go. I don't know.
It says, okay, this is also interesting because I think this is literally a side note. Gilfanon's tale follows on with consecutive page numbers from the second version of Varys' tale of the hiding of Valinor. So actually, the hiding of Valinor was the last tale that he heard at that house, at the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
But Gilfanon here tells it on the night following, not 3 days later. See, he changes it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all confusing. It's like, did he do it that night, or did he do it 3 days later,
That's
or
why I was
what
confused. I was
happened?
like, did they leave the cabin? Are they still at the cabin? How long have they been at this cabin? That's like, I'd get cabin fever after a while.
Listen to this sentence. Unhappily, Gilfanon was scarcely better served than Ilios had been, for if Ilios scarcely got started, Gilfanon stops abruptly after a very few pages. What? And this is all Christopher Tolkien talking about John Tolkien's writing. Like,
Yeah,
this is what
basically,
his dad was doing.
Chris is just like, he started writing things down. Yeah, I don't know either.
It was here that my father abandoned the lost tales, or more accurately, abandoned those that still waited to be written, and the effects of this withdrawal never ceased to be felt throughout the history of the Silmarillion. The major stories to follow Gilfanon's, those of Beren and Tinuviel, Turin Turumbar, the Fall of Gondolin, and the Necklace of the Dwarves, had been written, and in the first three cases, rewritten. So that, you see, Beren and Tinuviel, Turin Turumbar, and the Fall of Gondolin were written, and then they were done. He set them aside, he went on to go work, and then he came back and he rewrote them. Or he very well could have written them, sat for a second, and then rewrote them right away. So we don't know the exact process because Christopher never says, and Tolkien never told us. John Tolkien never told us how he wrote these stories. So it is all speculation. No one is going to be right. Not one single quote unquote Tolkien scholar will be right when they say when in the timeline these stories were written. We can kind of tell at the start of the universe, leading to the start of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. We can kind of tell a timeline there, but we don't know in what year from 1930, or let's give it a wide berth, from 1910 to 1972. We don't know when these stories were written for the Silmarillion and for the Book of Lost Tales and all the histories. So it's insane. It is, because he wrote those books, and I love Beren and Luthien. I love
Mm-hmm.
the story of Turin Turumbar. I love the Fall of Gondolin, and to hear that he wrote these, but he also wrote Gilfanon's tale, and it's like, when did he do that? Which one did he write first? That's what I want to know. But we're
Mm-hmm.
never going to know that, and that's what leads to the confusion.
Never met a more chaotic person than Tolkien.
Absolutely. And but you also have to imagine like what he went throughout his life. There was World War One.
Mm-hmm.
There was him working on the dictionary at Oxford, being a part of that team. Him being a
A
professor
professor,
at Oxford. Uh,
a
having
father,
having a love life. Being a father, being a family man. Um,
being
then
friends with other
being
people.
friends,
Like,
and not just that, not just being friends with other people, but being in like small tight knit friend groups where you would write stories for one another. when that was considered fun. And
oh yeah, I know it was a joke.
it was, that just leads to chaos. When you have so much going on in your life, you can't devote all of your time to one specific thing. I imagine that if he had just said, "Okay, I'm going to be a hermit for like 10 years, I'm going to if he had done what George R. R. Martin said he was going to do, I imagine we wouldn't just have Silmarillion. We would have Silmarillion part 1, part 2, part 3 and part 4, because he would just keep writing and writing and writing and perfecting it and perfecting it and perfecting it. And but you have all of these other things that were going on in his life throughout
Are
his
you
life.
saying he was a productive member of society and not a fat lard? Oops, oops, my bad. Whoops.
I disavow. I'm gonna.
I'm oopsie. I don't even know who I was referencing there.
Just leave the studio.
Wait, you actually eating yourself out? But oh, there.
That was.
Don't get Mando started on Martin. Banned. Yes, Boba. Sometimes I have some hot takes.
I had to leave the studio for my own safety. I disavow. Don't come after me, George. I know that you've got the fantasy mafia, man.
I mean, I've never actually read the books.
I have
so...
read Game of Thrones up to like where it's I think I've read up to the 4th book, and then I watched up to season 4, like actually watched it, and then I just casually paid attention to 5, 6, and 7, and then I did not care about 8 at all.
So my thing was I don't like to start books or book series that I know are not finished. I was going to read all of the Game of Thrones novels when he finished them, because I have been burned one too many times about authors who, and it's not their fault that they, like
Patrick Rothfuss.
but that they cease to exist, while they're writing a book. Like, I get that happens, yes. Well, one too many times I've started reading a book series. I'm like, this is great. I'm really getting into it, and I get to the book and the last book, and I'm just like, wait, what? And then I find out, oh yeah, the author isn't alive anymore to finish that. I was like,
yeah.
So I don't do that. Like, if I know that a book series is not finished, and it's supposed to be finished, and the author is still writing, I won't read any of the books until it is a complete series, because I've got my heart broken too many times.
This is why I'm taking so long. I am taking extraordinarily long to read Terry Pratchett, because Terry passed away in 2015, and I think it was 2015. It might have been 2012. It was one or the other. And so he had a bunch of books in progress, and he had a bunch of material to start new books in the background, like in like already like bits of, like what we talk about Tolkien, how Tolkien loved to write and just had stuff on the back of napkins and on the back of tests and things like that. Yeah, Terry Pratchett had the same thing. He had a bunch of notes, a bunch of documents. He had every single piece of paper. He had every single halfway done book, and he had every single hard drive that had a bunch of documents and notes on it destroyed when he passed away. So that means everything that he wrote is published. You can't change it. There's going to be no addendums. There's going to be no rewrites, nothing. But there's also not going to be anything added. So that's why it's a very, very happy feeling, but it's also very melancholy as well, because you're not going to get any more. So what we have is what we have. It's kind of like the saying, what you see is what you're going to get. You only have so many books of Terry Pratchett, and then you're done. And that is the difference between Terry Pratchett and Robert Jordan. Robert Jordan, who had created the Wheel of Time, specifically chose a successor to finish his story, and he chose Brandon Sanderson to finish his story. And everyone that I've talked to about the Wheel of Time has said Brandon Sanderson did a good job, all things considered. He made the best out of a bad situation. Now
Mhm.
you take those two instances, Robert Jordan and Terry Pratchett, and you look at Tolkien. We there like Robert Jordan specifically stated he wanted a successor. Terry Pratchett specifically stated no. As soon as I die, destroy everything that I've been working on, light it on fire, and I believe that he had a bulldozer crush every single one of his hard drives that had any type of notes on it.
Wow. That's kind of
Now look at
going off.
Tolkien. Tolkien passed away, most likely from a broken heart because of his wife passing a year before, and I've never been able to find a definitive proof that John Tolkien gave Chris Tolkien his blessing to continue, because it has always been Christopher Tolkien just advised and edited what other editors put together, because it's not just Christopher Tolkien that put these books together. Of course, he had the last word, but it was a bunch of editors working for his publishing company, or like I believe it was the publishing company, that put together the bits and pieces of Tolkien's work. And that's how we got the Silmarillion. That's how we got all the histories. That's how we get this book right here. And you have those three examples of an author not wanting his work to be touched after his death. Terry Pratchett. You have an author wanting a successor and wanting his stories to be finished. Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time. And then you have this unknown that is Tolkien, because it's so touchy, because it's a father and a son relationship. So
Mhm.
of course, like, they probably, I know that they had long chats about Tolkien's Legendarium and about what the books meant to the family. But it's also, are you sure that John would have wanted it done this way? Are you sure John would have written the book this way or pieced it together this way? And that's one of the what ifs. And
Mhm.
I truly believe that with the selling of the trademarks for basically everything but the books, because you had television, theater, movies, you had I believe even radio broadcasts was included in that deal, when Tolkien sold all the rights in 1969. I'll have to
Mhm.
look it up. But all of that has led to where we're at now, and it has, in a way, it has allowed Amazon to bastardize Tolkien's work inadvertently. I believe completely that Tolkien never wanted this to happen, but
Mhm.
in a way, you did allow this to happen, because instead of keeping everything as one solid package, you sold it piecemeal. And as soon as
Mhm.
you sell something, it's not yours anymore. So that means that Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings movies, that is in no way Christopher Tolkien's. It may have the Lord of the Rings branding on it, and it may be based on the Lord of the Rings, but it's not a book. It's a
Mhm.
movie. And
Mhm.
in the professional world, that is like crossing the Pacific Ocean just by swimming. That's how long it's going to take you to get from being a book to a movie. You're going to get eaten by a shark before you make it from one end to the other. So, and I love how you have all of these different authors, and you can go ahead and compare them to one
Mhm.
another. And I've found these three perfect examples of how each author is different, and each author wants a different thing for their audience. So I know that my rant really had no meaning, but I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Ador says I hate book series for that reason. For the yeah, like when they don't finish. I agree. That's why I would just reread Harry Potter over and over again.
Oh, and that's another one that I've been like trying to figure out how to add to this theory, is you have J.K. Rowling. She's the author, she's the creator of Harry Potter, right?
Mhm.
That is all hers. Uh she is now changing the lore of her own story
Mm-hmm.
after it's
Just
published.
yeah. I have strong feelings about that, but I want to get through these comments first. Uh, and they usually get worse as they go, like freaking Outlander. Yes. I agree. Yeah, if you find a good series, a good book, reread it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's so much good stuff out there. But touching on the Harry Potter incident, because as you can tell, I kind of like Harry Potter just a little bit. Like, just a little bit. Like, Hermione's wand's up there. Like, I like Harry Potter. I have a lot more Harry Potter stuff that is not currently on display at the moment. I have a little Funko Pop. I have the, cards. Like, I like Harry Potter. Anything that... So here's my opinion on this, and this is a lot of people's opinion who are like very similar to me in the fact that we like the canon. Like whenever I play the Witcher games, I say I'm playing what the canon choices are. Respect the lore, respect the canon that is there, that's already established. J.K. Rowling had a canon, had a legendarium when she wrote the Harry Potter series. Granted, yes, there were some gaps, there were some inconsistencies, and I understand clarifying those. Like those are good. Like clarify things that don't make sense. I think that's fine, and those should be considered canon if you're clarifying something. But when you go and you change something after you've already published it, after it's already said and done, you've made your decision, this is how things are supposed to be, and then you go and you are pressured into changing things, I don't consider that canon, because that is not actually a decision you made as the author. That is a decision you were forced into. So anything J.K. Rowling has said afterwards that has changed the canon of the Harry Potter series, I don't consider canon. Yes, some people would disagree with me because, well, J.K. Rowling is the author. She has the right to change whatever the heck she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no.
Yep.
She's published a work.
Yep. That is the crux of the argument. You have a published work, and I'm fully on your side. As soon as she started saying that all of these different people were not the way that she wrote them in the book, I always thought that Dumbledore was gay. I always thought that Hermione could have been black, and that she actually was. Like, no, you wrote Hermione as a very, very pale skinned redhead.
She's a ginger. Stop with the ginger side. Hashtag stop ginger hate.
And so that is, it's so frustrating. It is so frustrating to get people to understand this, that as soon as you have a published work, like that is
the canon. That is official canon, because
and
you
that
as the author have made it you put the seal of approval. This is official canon. I have published this work. I have said it's official. Anything other than this is not canon.
Yep. And that is why Tolkien spent so much time editing the mistakes of his editors and publishers. He had to personally go back and change things, like just small little wordings, but it would have changed the lore. It would have changed the canon. He says, no, that is not what I wanted for my books. And so I am going to sit down and reread all of your mistakes. And I'm going to take a copy that you sent over to America. I'm going to read it, and I'm gonna have like 15 copies, and I'm gonna make annotations. I'm gonna make notes. I am going to break out the red pen and point where you made every single possible mistake, and then I'm going to first off, I'm gonna rebuke you. I'm gonna chastise you, and then you're going to fix my work, because he cared about the publishing so much.
Right. Yeah, and I it's kind of a hot, like, it's weird that is considered a hot take now. And I also, on that same note, yeah, like, yes, I just chastised J.K. Rowling for caving to the masses, but I will also defend J.K. Rowling from all of the unnecessary, unwarranted hate that she gets, because she has her, like, the actors. I am appalled at Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson and every person who has come out against J.K. Rowling saying she is a bad person. Like, no, motherfricker, You just made your millions and billions because of that lady right there. You should be worshiping the ground that she walks on, because without her, you would not have a job. You would not have a career. You would not have anything. You would be a nobody on the side of the street begging for coin if it weren't for J.K. Rowling writing a fun story for you to be able to act in one day when it became a movie. So like, I will die on the hill defending J.K. Rowling because of the unnecessary hate that she gets on the internet. Like, people talking about she's a hater, that she's a bad person because she doesn't support the XYZ thing, you know, right now. Like, nah, like yes, she makes mistakes. Did she change the canon? Yes. Do I think that was a good decision? No. I think she should have just stood her ground. It's her story. You know, let her, it's her story. Like, there would be no argument if it wasn't for her. Like, this whole thing where they had this 10-year reunion of the Harry Potter cast. Guess who was not there? Guess who was not invited?
The
J.K.
author
Rowling.
of the story.
There are people online I unfollowed, and I was so upset when there were big YouTubers, big Harry Potter lore YouTubers that said J.K. Rowling is a horrible person and I love Harry Potter and it doesn't need J.K. Rowling. I'm like, you are a imbecile, because without J.K. Rowling, you would not have a YouTube channel. You would not have a career right now. And you're going to come out there and say, oh, well, J.K. Rowling does not support the XYZ, the most current thing. And you're going to say she's a bad person, but I like the story. And so I'm going to get the story without the author. Like, nah, Kiwasabi, you cannot have the story without the person who wrote the story. Like, get off your little high horse, stupid train, your little, you know, whatever you validation you need to feel to feel special. Like, no, you should be worshiping the ground she walks on. Whatever she says, you should say, yes, ma'am, I support you, queen. Sorry.
Go off. Keep going. Take as long as you want, because
exactly.
we finished the chapter. We finished the book. There's no more material.
I've not followed the drama around her, just some superficiality. Yes. I will never watch the 20th book them. Yes. Agreed. Like, I don't know if you're even familiar, Ark, with some of the just despicable, disgusting hate that J.K. Rowling gets.
I notice it on Twitter, and I'm just thinking, oh well, like, sucks to be you, but you never should have bent the knee the first time. As soon as you give them an inch, they take a mile, and as soon as you bend the knee the first time, they want you to stay there. As soon as you try to get back up and say, okay, are we good now? Are we on the same, we're on the same side? We're all good. Let me get up and let me stretch my legs. No. Stay down there. You don't get to come back up here ever again.
Right. And I understand that. I understand that stance. Like, yes, a lot of the hate she gets, she start, like, when you give an inch a mile, like, they take a mile, but I still, like, I will still defend her, because she is a human being who made mistakes. Like, she made a mistake bending the knee the first time, and unfortunately they broke her knees when she did that.
Yep.
But she does not deserve some of the, like, just the...
Oh, she gets death threats. I have seen some
daily.
And not just daily. It is probably
disgusting.
She showed, like, she had a thread on Twitter one time where she showed like dozens of death threats that she received for her stances on things that we can't say on this channel.
Correct.
She has stances that Mama Susan doesn't like. Let's just say that.
Correct. Unless they get back the millions she made them, I am done with all of them. Correct. Like, there's a YouTube channel that I used to follow religiously that talked about Harry Potter lore, and they came out one day and they said, well, we're still going to talk about Harry Potter, but J.K. Rowling is an ex, blah blah blah. Like, they said she's a bad person, and I was like, unsubscribe. You just lost a subscriber. You just lost a member. I'm done with you, stupid people, because, like, what? Like, she made that person's YouTube channel. If it hadn't been for her creation from her mind, they wouldn't have a YouTube channel. Or these actors and actresses that are like, she's a bad person, so we're not going to associate with her. Like, be she made you famous. If it wasn't for her, like, you wouldn't be here. Like, I agree with Ladart. Like, y'all need to give back the millions she made you then. Like, you gonna complain about her? You give her back the millions. Like,
Absolutely agree.
so sorry, that's my Harry Potter rant. Like, I still love the books, and I will always love the books. And I'm a Gryffindor for life. Hashtag Gryffindor. And I will defend J.K. Rowling's, like, at her as a person, that she made a mistake. Like, yes, she made a mistake. She should not have bent the knee. She should not have changed the canon for the stupid people. But she does not deserve what she's been, like, a lot of
No,
the
no, no,
stupid
no, no,
stuff.
no. People can be stupid and they can say and do stupid things. That does not make them evil people, and that does not make them deserving of hate and malice and death threats and actual wishing violence on someone. That is never okay. That should never happen.
Correct.
Of anyone that just says or does something stupid or stands up for something that they believe in. Like, I understand how volatile some topics can be, but you
Right.
should never resort to violence, because as soon as you've done that, you,
You crossed the line.
you've crossed the line, but you've lost. You've lost the ability to change a mind, and not just, let's say, the people that are sending J.K. Rowling death threats. They've lost my support. Like, there could have been a time where I might have said, you know what? If you guys had given a good enough argument on why Hermione should have been black and not a ginger, maybe. Like, there's always that possibility, and you can't say that there isn't that possibility. But they don't have an argument because, number one, there is no argument to begin with. Number two, all they do is send death threats if you disagree with them. So it completely turns people the opposite direction. And it's, oh man, that is another topic that I could talk about for days.
Yeah, Boba, is she for real a bad person, or was just she's bad because of some she's a bad person the same way like Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic are toxic people. She had an opinion that wasn't in line with the current regime of opinions. Yes. You're a Hufflepuff. I'm married to a Hufflepuff, late art. I love the Hufflepuffs. Boba, I think I'd be Ravenclaw.
Yeah, she's not like, she's not a bad person per se, like the mustache man that led the National Socialist of Germany. She's not that type of bad person. She's just a human being that has opinions that go against the grain, and that is all it takes for you to be compared to that person who had a mustache and was a leader back in the 1930s of the National German Socialists. So that's as far as I can go on YouTube.
Right, later. I generally don't care what the author says or does. When the product is great, cancel culture is horrible. Agreed. Yeah, it's like once the author has made something, I don't care. Are you gonna make another book? No, I don't care. Bye bye. I'll
And
read this book.
this is also a good one. And no one deserves death threats. No one does. No
Agreed.
one deserves death threats.
For if you ever have, like, there were people who on Twitter, and I saw this on Twitter, and this was part of the reason I thought about just leaving Twitter forever, was there was somebody who was not only wishing violence on her but her entire family, and they graphically explained what they wanted to do, and I was just like, that it was on that day that I was like, I will defend J.K. Rowling. I disagree with her, but I will defend her. Like, excuse you, person.
Oh, I have seen some death threats sent to men about the women in their lives that are so graphic that it turns your stomach.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do except for post the user that makes that death threat and just put them on blast and let the world know that this is a disgusting human being that is wishing death on another. That's not all right. That is not okay. That is not what we stand for at all.
That is correct.
that is one thing that Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic and the Rippaverse and everyone that is in our very large uh, circles and communities and fellowships, that is one thing that we all agree on. You don't
Mm-hmm.
send death threats. You do not wish death on people. You want to sit down and talk to the dumbass, and you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about how their arguments are flawed, and you want to have an open-minded dialogue with them. And if they don't want that, you move on.
Mm-hmm. Brewer Doomsday says I'm Ravenclaw according to the Sorting Hat thing on the Harry Potter. Yeah. That's so. Here's the reason why Harry Potter or not Hermione Granger and Professor McGonagall are my favorite is because like I took the Sorting Hat quiz a few different times and I would like it was either Gryffindor or Ravenclaw. Like either like I can choose either one I wanted to be in, and I chose Gryffindor because it's a lion. Rawr. I'm kidding. No way. It's all about the blind outrage. Not now. There's no room for discussion. Agreed. Then that's sad. That's sad that we're at this point in time in our human history. But this is not the first time we've been there as humanity. All right, we have articles for you guys, and we have 30 minutes to get through all of them because I ranted. My bad. Do you guys know about Legacy of Hogwarts game? Yes, I do know about it. It was pushed back to next year. Tugs did a rant. Let's not do a rant. I don't need to do another Harry Potter rant.
We've gone from Lord of the Rings to Star Wars to Lord of the Rings to Harry Potter. It's all come full circle. So let's go to these articles. The first one is very interesting if you want to share your screen.
Sorry, Late Art made a good point about J.K. Rowling was involved in the movies.
I was on the article. Oh no.
J.K. Rowling was involved with the filming of the movie. If Hermione was black, they should have cast a black girl.
Absolutely.
Now, which article are you talking about?
We're gonna do the Bear McCreary, the composer.
Ah, okay.
We'll do that one first.
She'll share the screen.
You're gonna scare the screen? Oh no!
I'm gonna scare the screen.
Okay. All right. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is so bad.
Be free.
So it says composer Bear McCreary has scored some of the seminal sci-fi and fantasy series of our time, from Battlestar Galactica to The Walking Dead and Outlander. But it's safe to say that nothing quite compares to experience scoring The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power, which debuts September 2nd. I'm going to point out again, I'm going to do this every single podcast that I'm on. Every single chance that I get to speak, I'm going to say I hate that they use The Lord of the Rings: The Rings of Power as the title. That is so annoying. That is so annoying. But, okay, so he's got Battlestar Galactica. It's all right. He's got The Walking Dead. It started out wonderful. It's kind of just meh now. And then Outlander. Once again, it's pretty good, but now it's just meh. Like, all right, cool. But I understand that the plot is different to the composition of the music, but also the composition of the music has to flow with the plot. So that means sometimes your music's going to be quite meh.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to jump down to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And jump down to the fourth paragraph.
English, we do
English,
well.
man, English. I'm just like, reading an article. It says,
this one?
No. Go up one. It says, I'm a huge fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. Go up one. I don't even know how to count. There it is. I'm a huge fan of J.R.R. Tolkien books of the Legendarium, the mythology, and the Peter Jackson films. Okay. All right. Same here. They were, in a way, at the nexus of my childhood and adulthood. The last films that took me away as a child, I watched those films over and over and over. Okay. Then you should know what a Middle-earth composition sounds like because of Howard Shore.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't. I'm going to state this before I even hear what you have to say, Bear McCreary. McCreary's journey with the characters of Middle Earth began 13 months ago, and the secrecy of the project was such that he couldn't tell anyone outside of his music team that he was doing it. That is commonplace. That
Mm-hmm.
is that is so common. It shouldn't even be mentioned in this article. Like that is a complete nothing burger when it comes to journalism, because
Mm-hmm.
every single composer has to be told, hey, you're going to be composing about Middle Earth, you're going to be composing about Star Wars, we can't have you tell anybody that you're working on this, because we still need to we need it to be good, and we don't need people to know that you're doing it, because if they hear that Bear McCreary is doing it, they're going to think, oh, we're going to get some Walking Dead theme in the Lord of the
Mm-hmm.
Rings, or we're gonna get some Outlander theme in the Lord of the Rings. Like that is oh my word. He says, I'm trying to honor the legacy of what Howard Shore created, and to do so by using those epic colors and crafting 15 new themes that can be added to the pantheon of memorable melodies that started with Shore's films. He's going to create 15 new themes. This is horrible, people. This is 15 horrible new themes. He spent 2 months just writing themes based primarily on reading the scripts. Each of the themes had a section, had an A section, a B section, an intro, or a development. It was like writing a symphony. I planned all this out so that when I could dive into the footage, I would have the pieces I needed in place. So he had 1, 2, 3, 4. He had four separate, he had four pieces to each theme, and he did that 15 times. And for the first 2 months, it was primarily on reading the scripts.
Emperor Doomsday says that he did a God of War 2018 soundtrack and it was pretty good. So
It is good. I do have to give Bear props where he deserves it. But this is gonna be trash. There's no way that you're gonna save the Lord of the Rings just through music. There is absolutely no way. It is probably going to be, and I'll take everything back if I find the soundtrack to be good. I'll take everything back that I'm saying here. But as I sit right now, as it stands, on 8/20/2022, I think that the composition for the Rings of Prime is going to be absolute dog water. Because there's no way that you can make a symphony based around this crap that we know is going to be crap. There's no saving it. There's nothing. And Emperor Doomsday just said, yeah, there's no saving it. Yeah. So and all this does is this is just going to be a black spot on Bear McCreary's legacy.
yeah, that's.
He
I
went
feel like
from he went from God of War 2018, which is a phenomenal soundtrack, to this trash in 2022. Like, come on. You should
that was
know.
definitely a downgrade.
You should be able to choose your battles, and you chose the wrong one just because it has Lord of the Rings slapped on there, and you thought you could become the next Howard Shore. Bro, you were already
Mm-hmm.
an accomplished composer. You didn't need this. You just wanted it. He says
Mm-hmm.
the music for each of the 8 episodes was recorded in London for 4 days, often with 90-piece orchestras plus a 40-voice choir in Vienna, singing in various Tolkien-created languages, and soloists across Europe and in
I
Los
bet you that's
Angeles.
going to be the only part of that's in Elvish. I bet you the music is the only part in Elvish for this whole series.
Yep,
If I'm wrong, I will drink my coffee with sugar in it.
yep, playing a variety of instruments. But here's the thing. I have no idea what a nickel harpa is, but that sounds cool. It says that means he continues speaking, that means whether you are seeing a giant battle, an epic montage, or just two harfeetsies sitting in the woods talking, you have the largest orchestra that could fit in Abbey Road or Air Studios supporting them, along with the best soloists in the world and a huge choir. Now that sounds cool. That sounds really cool. But it also sounds like complete trash. Because
Well,
why would you waste all of this talent? And I'm positive that a 90-piece choir, I mean, a 90-piece orchestra and a 40-piece choir, like that's a talent right there.
right.
And you're wasting it. He says the choral material was carefully prepared. Carefully prepared how? You just read the scripts and then watched the show. You didn't use any other material. Every
Right.
cue. Oh, what do you have to say?
I was gonna say, like, if he's basing his scores, like, here's, and I think this is where I'm gonna differ from you, Art. I think the music is gonna be fantastic. It's just not gonna fit within the Rings of Prime. I think it's gonna feel out of place because it's probably gonna be more authentic to the music that like Howard Shore made than the actual Rings of Prime series is gonna be. It's gonna feel so out of place because it's gonna be like, oh, we're actually getting elves singing in Elvish, but that's
Right.
not what this is. So I think that's where we're gonna kind of get this weird disconjointed, like, the music is gonna be pretty neat, but it's like it's just gonna be dog poop wrapped in a very pretty bow, and the pretty bow and the pretty parts are gonna be the music.
Yeah, I agree. It says the texts are in two Elvish languages, Sindarin and Quenya, the Dwarvish language of Kuzdul, Black speech, the language of so they're gonna have. You're gonna hear. Oh, that actually might be interesting, because like the only time that we really hear Black speech is like definitively is when Gandalf speaks it at Rivendell, and
Hmm.
that was pretty cool. It
which
sounded like a chant.
which paragraph are you on?
Oh, that's you have to go up, 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 up. See, I don't have ads because I have ad blocker, and so the way that it's structured is different. You are down. Oh my gosh, Mando. Let me just share my screen.
Okay.
Let me move this over.
I'm sorry, man.
I was trying to have it to where I could read chat and read everything and stay up to date on that. Let me share screen, share. All right, we are right here. So it says the texts are in Elvish, Dwarvish, Black speech, and Idunaic, the language of Numenor. I have no idea how that is supposed to sound, so I am not looking forward to that. We know how black speech is supposed to sound. We know how Dwarvish is supposed to sound. We know how Sindarin and Quenya are supposed to sound. I have no idea how this sounds. I just don't know. Maybe search on YouTube. Maybe there's a quote unquote Tolkien scholar that knows what they're talking about and knows how to recreate them.
Not the frickin' Tolkien professor.
Ugh.
Like, what kind of arrogance do you think you sorry, continue.
McCreary composed 9 hours of music in 8 months. That's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Working long hours with just 5 days off in that time. Why is that needed? Like, it's impressive enough. We know how intensive 9 hours of music composition in 8 months is. Yeah, just that's this whole paragraph. Variety, get better writers, you dunces. Shore's theme was actually written apart from the McCreary score. His title is majestic and beautiful. It forms this very inviting fanfare to take us into the world of Middle Earth. Oh, yes, you're just making a statement, and it's pretty much. Oh, and then we're gonna get into the album tracks. I saw that when I was reading it. Like, that sounds interesting. My hope is that if anyone watches our show and then watches the Peter Jackson films, there will be a continuity of concept. It ain't gonna happen, buddy.
Yeah,
It
I think
ain't gonna
he
happen.
cares more about continuity than the writers of the show, I think.
And that is the only, like what Emperor Doomsday said. He made the God of War soundtrack. It was amazing. He's probably gonna put his best foot forward in this way, but it is not going to go the way he wants it, because the producers and the two showrunners are awful, awful human beings, and they only care about money. So let's see. McCreary was in his Los Angeles studio writing while most of the music was being recorded overseas, but he did get to conduct the final episode and air in April. For the first time in 2.5 years, I got to conduct. It was an amazing experience. So he was just writing it. He was composing the way it was supposed to sound. And then, as normal with Hollywood, they let other conductors like actually conduct. But he was able to conduct one, which is pretty cool. Like to be able to conduct your own work, like I got to give that props. That must have been a special moment for him. The album includes 2 performances by the Rings of Power actors, Sofia Numvedi, Princess Disa. That is the Dwarf of Color, everyone. On the track, a plea to the rocks. And Megan Richards, Poppy Proudfellow. That's one of the Harfeetsies, everyone. On This Wandering Day. This is gonna be great, people. The album track listing is below, which hints at details in the series. Let's dive in, shall we? The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, main title by Howard Shore. Galadriel, Khazad-dûm, Nori Brandyfoot. That's a Harfeetsies. That's the main one.
The main Harfeetsies.
The Stranger. That's Halbrand. That has got to be Halbrand. Numenor. Then Sauron has his own theme. Valinor. Oh, so we're going to Valinor, huh? We're going to Valinor. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Hey, guys, I love it. Can you tell that I love it? In the beginning.
So these are going to be the episodes or whatever where we get the flashbacks. Valinor and in the beginning are the flashback scenes.
Elrond Half-Elven and his boyfriend Durin the Fourth. Harfoot life.
What?
Fuck life. Fuck life.
It's gonna be the Harfeetsies thugs, man.
Bronwyn and Arondir. That's the
Baron and Luthien
couple, right?
wannabe. Yeah, Baron and Luthien wannabe. Yep.
Halbrand, which is going to have, I suspect, a very similar sound to Sauron, because that is, mark my words, Halbrand is Sauron. Mark my frickin' words. The boat.
The vessel.
I think this is where the boat breaks. Sundering Seas. Nobody goes off trail. Frodo did, and it worked. Thank you very much. Elendil and Isildur.
Okay.
So this is where Isildur's going to be a little brat, and he's going to rebel against his loving dad, and then Isildur's going to like say, "Go frick yourself, Dad, and I'm going to go do what I want to do because I'm a grown man and I know what's right for me." And Elendil's going to be really sad, and he's going to have the prodigal son moment when Isildur actually gets his act together and saves the seed of the white tree. White leaves. Oh,
the white tree. Well, not Gondor yet, but the white tree. Yep.
Of Numenor. Well, I think that there were multiple white trees of Numenor. The Secrets of the Mountain. That's going to be Khazad-dûm.
I don't know. I think that's going to be the one where it was supposed to be to Iluvatar, and then the cult of Melkor took over or something.
Oh, you think so? Okay. All right. We'll be paying attention to number 20. We'll be paying attention to that. Nolwa Matar. I have no idea what that means. I probably just said that your mama's a bitch in whatever language that is. Nampat. I probably just said your dad's a bitch. A Plea to the Rocks. Lovely. Love it. Love it. This Wandering Day. Scherzo for violin and swords. So schizo violin. Okay, makes sense. Sailing into Dawn.
It's probably when the Numenor sinks.
Hey, look, there's also going to be microtransactions because Amazon Music exclusive Find the Light and The Promised King. Amazon Music exclusive. There's always some way for Amazon to make more money. For the Southlands, Cavalry. That's
I
going to be
bet you that
horrible.
For the Southlands is going to be the orc soundtrack.
Could be. No, I think the Southlanders, I think that they're making those like the peasant humans that are not Numenorian. That's what I think. So we have Water and Flame in the Mines. That's probably Khazad-dûm. That's probably a Khazad-dûm one. The Veil of Smoke. That's probably Meteor Man.
Probably.
The Mystics. That's probably Slim Shady. Perilous Whisperings. That's
That's gonna be
probably
the black dagger, the black sword thingamabobber.
yeah. The Broken Line. Hello. I have no
Uh,
idea what that one could be.
I have an idea. I don't know.
The Wise One. That's got to be Galadriel. So she's getting two. That's what I'm calling it. That's a joke.
Mhm.
The Wise One. I bet you that could be.
If Gandalf freaking shows
That's
up in
Gandalf.
this freaking series, I'm going to flip some tables.
True creation requires sacrifice.
It's going to be the two trees dying, probably.
Where the shadows lie, it's only an instrumental. Okay. So that's 39 songs off of this album, and that's probably just for this first season. So that is the I enjoy. The reason why I wanted to bring this one up first is because I really enjoy music and listening to music, and we all know that compositions and music soundtracks bring the movies together. They can make or break the movies. So we can go ahead and talk about Isildur, or we can talk about
Why don't we briefly talk about the Rings of Power, Amazon Prime's most ambitious attempt to breathe life into the unheard tales of Middle Earth.
I like it.
Do you want to do it since my ad block, like, apparently my ad blocker does not block all of the ads that it's supposed to block?
I'll do it. Cool. Share the screen. Yeah. So we're gonna have this guy. It's the Rings of Power, Amazon Prime's most ambitious attempt to breathe life into unheard tales of Middle Earth. Taking giant leaps in the right direction, Prime Studio roped in Peter Jackson, who confirmed his association with the project in April 2018.
That's a lie. But look at when this article was written.
Updated on August 19th, 2022 at 20:35.
So yesterday.
IST.
So they're trying to cover their tushies.
Almost every kid born by the late 80s or early 90s has been a witness to magical tales that have unfolded on the silver screen, be it J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter or the Chronicles of Narnia. Wait, that was not a magical tale. That was a train wreck that should never have been made, in my opinion. I watched all of the Chronicles of Narnia. They did C.S. Lewis such an injustice. But that's a topic for another day. But yeah, that's bullcrap right there. I will say that I haven't seen Harry Potter, but from what I have gathered from all of my friends that love Harry Potter, they did a pretty okay job. Kids of these timelines have found a home-like comfort in these stories. J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is no different. It is safe to say that Peter Jackson's adaptation of Tolkien's work opened the floodgates to how fantasy films were supposed to be made for audiences. I can somewhat agree with this. I can agree with that statement, yeah. Be it the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, or the Return of the King, Jackson has done complete justice to Tolkien's writings and has made characters like Gandalf, Sauron, and Frodo relatable in every possible way. I completely disagree with this last part of this sentence. Jackson has done complete justice to Tolkien's writings? No. Disagree. Just completely disagree.
Hot take there.
That, like, there's no way that even Jackson would say he did not do complete justice. I think, as I've stated before, my opinion of the trilogy is I watched the trilogy before I read the books. I went ahead and I rewatched the trilogy quite recently, having read the books quite recently, and I must say he missed a lot of stuff. He took a lot of stuff out. He actually took quotes from Tom, like the most generic answer is he took quotes from Tom Bombadil and gave them to Treebeard. That fit. And I was talking about this recently on my YouTube live stream, the first one that I had last Thursday, and that was brought up, like how it was not a complete justice, and how, like, if Tom Bombadil, like, if you wanted to have a complete justice, you would write Tom Bombadil into the movie. But we have all stated, well, most of us stated, that not having Tom Bombadil in the movie was actually a plus because
Yeah, I
of how
agree.
powerful he was when he took the ring, he put it on, and then he took it off and he twirled it around on his finger, and then he was like, oh, this is a nice piece of jewelry. He was too powerful. He was too otherworldly. It would have just completely thrown off the entire flow of the story. So it's
Agreed.
good, in my opinion, and in many others, but not all, but in many others' opinion, that Tom Bombadil was not included. But this statement right here, that's bait. That's complete bait. Moving on. It is Jackson's prowess in his craft. He was a director and he was a writer and he did have some films under his belt, but this was his breakout role. Like, this was his breakout debut, was The Lord of the Rings. And he was mainly creating cult successes in his previous works. It won 17 out of 30 Academy Award nominations, with The Return of the King winning 11. After Jackson was done with the 3 Lord of the Ring movies, he decided to return and ended up filming 3 more Hobbit movies, which included blah, 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 blah. These movies were certainly not received well, but they make up for a magnificent visual spectacle. I can agree with that. It was a magnificent visual spectacle. The writing was trash, but the scenery was really nice. I do have to say that. But let's see. It says he decided to return and ended up filming 3 more Hobbit movies. They always seem to forget that Guillermo del Toro started that project.
Mm-hmm.
They always forget that because he fucked off. Guillermo del Toro left.
Mm-hmm.
And just left Jackson in like with everything else.
A steaming turd.
Just it's horrible. It's really, really bad. On November 13th, remember this date, November 13th, 2017. Amazon
I remember
Prime,
this because it was close to my birthday and I was excited. I was like, yay, birthday present to me.
I was excited too. I was very excited too when they announced that they had acquired the rights to create some film or TV show or what have you. Amazon Prime acquired the television rights of this mega fantasy story for a whopping $250 million. The streaming platform, which was hellbent on telling the unheard tales of Middle-earth, announced it as its most ambitious project so far. Let me take a drink of water.
So excited, I just can't hide it. I know, right, Boba? Just so excited.
Insiders from the industry termed the amount as an insane one because they saw no point in remaking a story that had been told earlier. Little did anyone know that Prime Studios had already started working with Tolkien Estate and Trust, HarperCollins, and New Line to curate a storyline with the events that had happened before the ones portrayed in the Lord of the Rings movies. I have no idea how you can do that if you don't own the rights to it. All you have is the television rights, and all you have is the television rights to The Hobbit and the Lord of the
That's why
Rings.
the experts were hesitant, and for some reason, all of a sudden now the experts are like, "Yes, they're doing a good thing." But before, the experts were just like, "That's."
Taking giant leaps, that's an understatement. In the right direction, that is incorrect. Prime Studio roped in Peter Jackson, who confirmed his association with the project in April 2018.
Lies.
Later, this is probably where they corrected it. Later, in December 2018, Peter Jackson openly said that he went through the script and offered his notes. This is a lie. There was no script that was given to him, because we covered that Peter Jackson was not associated with this, and he received no scripts because he said, I am not going to talk about The Lord of the Rings if I can't see a script. As the writers began work in February 2019, Prime Studio confirmed that their version of the famous Lord of the Rings will span across 5 seasons and will deal with the aspects in detail.
People be lying.
With Amazon Prime going out with all guns blazing for this epic fantasy drama. Oh, it's a drama now. Fans in the studio just have their fingers crossed that the new version does justice for Tolkien's work and manages to start from where Jackson left. The fantasy series releases on September 2nd, 2022. That's this whole India TV. You're worse than Variety. I'm just going to say it.
People be lying through their teeth, through the teethies of the...
Oh, Mando robot. Mando robot.
Oh.
Nope, yeah, you're back.
Oh, no. Give me a moment. Oh, I'm back?
You're good now. You're good now.
Okay. But yeah, they be lying through their teethies. These harfeetsies. Yeah, no. But this is who we're up against. These are the type of people that we are up against. They will blatantly lie to you and say, yeah, Peter Jackson, he knew all about it. He knew what was going on. I'm like, nah, bruh. Nah, don't lie. Don't you lie.
It's ridiculous. But I do have to point out that was an Indian journal. So they're probably like, you have to read that journalist, like you have to read that journal in an Indian accent, and then you'll understand it. And you have to bob your head too.
But the thing is, like, I specifically found that to because of course people keep saying like Tolkien, like it's internationally being downvoted, internationally across the board, like people are downvoting it. There are other people out there in other countries that are just as just as much liars as our big media companies, and there are people fighting against them as well. And so I wanted to show like, one, we're not the only ones here in the Western world that are being lied to about Tolkien. 2, we're not the only ones fighting against the lies. And 3, this is a global lie. Like this is bigger than what people understand it to be. Like this is a global phenomenon that people are fighting against, these lying, hypocritical companies that want to tell us what to do with our lives. And just like, we're not alone. We are not alone in the Western world as far as like our love of Tolkien, our love of all things Lord of the Rings. Like there is a, like, it's crazy how big Tolkien is. I don't think Amazon had any idea how big Tolkien was. I think they thought, okay, Peter Jackson trilogy was a huge hit, and even though the Hobbit trilogy was stupid and horrible, it was still a hit. So we can just dish out trash on a plate, and these idiots are gonna gobble it up. Nay, I say.
Nay. I've seen it. It's great. It's great.
Yes,
His comedies.
Fluffy is fantastic in India. Yes, but I have to bounce. You have any final closing thoughts?
My final closing thoughts are this show is going to be utter trash and the music can't save it. And if you would like to hear me speak more about this, you can catch me on Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Arkasule. And you can follow me on Twitter, which is at Arkasule. And I speak my mind about this topic as you can see here. And yeah, I look forward to next week because we start part 2, which is quite short actually. So I think we'll only have 2 weeks for this book, and then we'll move on to another. Ooh, fancy.
All right. And my closing thoughts are I don't have any more live streams that I am aware of for the rest of this week. So you'll see me in a lot of chats, possibly in other people's live streams. My next live stream will be Tuesday, playing some probably SWOTOR, but who knows what's going on with my life right now. You can follow most of my live streams are on Twitch, so twitch.tv/The Untamable Life, where you can find me most often. And I have a Discord, all of the things. Thank you, Bubba. Said it was super fun as always. Yes, super fun as always. Can't wait for next week. Next week we are going into the Book of Lost Tales Part 2, and then the sky is the limit after that. So, oh my. Anyway, you guys have a great day, a great Saturday, a great weekend. Hope everyone has a lovely afternoon or wherever you are in this big wide world, and we will see you next time